The Galactic Council chamber shimmered like a cathedral of light and arrogance. Holograms of 1,000 species floated in the air, scaled, feathered, crystalline, gaseous, arguing in a dozen tongues about laws older than empires. Their voices layered like a storm, each trying to outdo the others in righteousness. Above them all, carved in gold plasma on the ceiling, blazed the Council's first and most sacred commandment: do not interfere with developing worlds. Beneath it, smaller, written almost as an afterthought, was the strange addition that had baffled the galaxy for a century: and do not harm human children. No one remembered who had proposed it. It had simply appeared after the Terran War. The record keepers claimed the vote was unanimous. None of the delegates remembered voting, yet no one dared challenge outright. Until now. Preposterous superstition, bellowed the Vorthan ambassador, a being of translucent stone whose inner veins pulsed with molten light. Why should one species, one primitive, warlike, emotionally unstable mammal, dictate the behavior of the galaxy? His words echoed through the marble acoustics. A few delegates clicked mandibles in agreement. Others remained silent. The ones who remembered the old stories simply watched the floor. A thin plume of steam rose from the center of the hall. Coffee. The human representative was stirring his mug, legs crossed casually, as if sitting in a cafe rather than the highest court of the stars. Morgan Hale looked absurdly ordinary among the alien grandeur. Mid-30s, clean-cut hair, faint crow's feet from laughter or sorrow. No one could tell. His Earth-issue uniform wasn't adorned with medals or holographic emblems, just an old navy pin shaped like an anchor. He smiled faintly. "Ambassador Vorthan," he said, voice smooth as oil, "you make a fine point. Emotional, self-absorbed, warlike. Humans are all those things. But we do make excellent coffee. Would you like some?" The crystalline being recoiled. "You dare trivialize this?" Morgan sipped, eyes half-lidded. "I find coffee helps me think. Especially when someone's trying to remove the only law that's kept this galaxy breathing." A low ripple of laughter moved through the hall, though none of it was genuine. Humor had become humanity's armor in these meetings, an unpredictable trick weapon. Vorthan slammed his obsidian claws against the table. "Your species exaggerates its significance. This rule, it stifles enforcement. The Xyler patrols can't even engage pirates if one of your spawn might be aboard. You've made us prisoners of your paranoia." Morgan tilted his head. "Is that what you think it is, paranoia?" A hush followed. Even the drones recording the proceedings seemed to lean closer. Morgan's smile didn't fade, but the warmth behind it evaporated. "Let me remind you what happened the last time someone tested that law. The Crithian Empire. Remember them? Advanced, disciplined, very proud of their navy. They decided human children weren't strategically relevant. 2 days later, their fleets vanished. Not defeated. Vanished. That is human propaganda." "Of course," Morgan said pleasantly. "We're very good at propaganda. We invented marketing, after all." Nervous laughter again. He set the mug down carefully, as if each movement carried diplomatic weight. "The universe learned something about us then. We can forgive anything except harm to our young. You can burn our cities, enslave our adults, mock our culture. But touch our children." His voice dropped to a whisper that still carried across the chamber. "Then even God hides." For a moment, no one breathed. Even the ambient hum of translation drones faltered. Then the Grand Arbiter, a creature shaped like an orchid with eyes of liquid silver, intervened. "Ambassador Hale, the Council has no desire to revisit ancient bloodshed. The Vorthan delegation merely requests clarity. Perhaps the human clause has outlived its purpose. Your people have been peaceful for decades." "Peaceful," Morgan repeated, as if tasting the word. "Yes, we've been quiet. There's a difference." The Arbiter inclined her petals in confusion. "You imply threat?" "Not at all," Morgan said smoothly. "Silence isn't threat. It's patience. You'd be amazed how patient we can be when we're angry." Before anyone could respond, a deep bass tone vibrated through the chamber. A courier drone burst in, trailing static. It projected a field of flickering images, blasted hulls, burning skies, distress beacons. The air thickened with the smell of ozone and bloodless panic. The arbiter's voice trembled. What sector? The drone answered in clipped translation. Zayrath Frontier. Civilian refugee convoy destroyed. Source: Xyler patrol ship. 100 alien voices collided. Impossible. A malfunction. Fabrication. Xyler sensors do not. Then the projection shifted. Among the debris drifted small white pods, charred but unmistakable. Human lifeboats. Their identifiers glowed faintly, names etched in Latin script. 12 tiny signals extinguished in silence. The chamber froze. Morgan didn't stand. He simply leaned back in his chair and studied the hologram. His expression didn't change, yet the temperature seemed to drop several degrees. His voice, when it came, was calm and eerily polite. How old? Between 5 and 11 standard years, said the drone automatically. He nodded slowly. Children, then. Vorthen tried to recover his authority. Surely it was an accident. Morgan lifted a hand. The movement was small, but it silenced the room. Ambassador, he said softly, you've just broken the only rule this galaxy ever needed. The Vorthen's inner glow flickered. You can't mean. Don't worry. Morgan smiled again, that same courteous, infuriating smile. Earth won't retaliate. Not immediately. He rose at last, straightened his uniform, and placed the half-empty mug gently on the table. We'll mourn. We'll remember. And then we'll make sure it doesn't happen again. The Arbiter's petals quivered. Ambassador Hale, the Council demands assurance that... He looked up at her, eyes suddenly ancient. You want assurance? Fine. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small brass object, a child's locket. Inside, a faded photo of 2 laughing faces, freckles, and missing teeth. He closed it carefully. The last time a species touched what was ours, the night sky itself changed. You still navigate by the gaps we left. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Even those who had never seen war instinctively shrank back. Morgan turned toward the exit. I'll be leaving for Earth. Funerals, you understand. Give my condolences to the Xyler Dominion. And a little advice. He paused by the archway, haloed by the golden glow of the Council's motto. Start evacuating your homeworlds, just in case our patience runs out. The doors hissed shut behind him. For several seconds, no one moved. The crystalline ambassador's inner fire dimmed to ash. Somewhere deep in the chamber, the coffee mug still steamed gently, tiny tendrils of warmth curling upward into the cold silence of the stars. Exactly 1 minute later, the human communication networks across the galaxy went dark. The galaxy had never known silence like this. It wasn't peace, it was the breath held before scream. For 48 hours after the council session, humanity said nothing. No broadcasts, no statements, no official condolences. The networks that once shimmered with human chatter, advertisements for Earth coffee, music streams, late-night comedies broadcast to alien audiences, simply stopped. Every signal from Earth flickered out like candles snuffed one by one, leaving a void so deep that even machines hesitated to transmit into it. The Xyler Dominion tried first to fill the silence. Their supreme command released a hollow broadcast, an apology written by diplomats, sterilized by lawyers. We mourn the tragic loss of all life, their chancellor said, voice trembling with artificial empathy. Sensor malfunction, atmospheric distortion, regrettable accident. The message repeated on every channel until it felt like a nervous cough echoing through empty halls. Across the stars, other species debated what would come next. The media panels filled with self-proclaimed human experts, analyzing ancient Terran habits as if they were weather patterns. Humans are emotional but pragmatic, said one reptilian strategist. They'll accept reparations. They always do. Another, older scholar disagreed. They won't, she said softly. They'll make you think they have, right until the moment they remind you what fear is made of. The younger races laughed. The older ones began moving their fleets. On Elian Prime, Morganhale returned to his quarters in the human embassy, an elegant building of minimalist Earth design, quiet and sunlit. now sealed shut under security lockdown. He walked the long glass corridor overlooking the city of light, its towers glimmering beneath the twin moons, and poured himself another cup of coffee. It steamed in the dimness, faint and human. His aide, a nervous young lieutenant named Ria Santiago, watched him with wide eyes. "Sir," she whispered, "the Dominions issued another apology. They've offered to pay reparations directly to the families." Morgan didn't answer immediately. He sipped. The cup clinked softly as he set it down. "Reparations for children," he said finally, voice calm, measured. "That's like paying the wind to stop blowing." Ria hesitated. Are we going to war?" He smiled, but it wasn't kind. "War is loud. We're past that. We've learned quieter ways." Outside, night rolled across Ilion Prime. From orbit, the human embassy looked asleep, its windows dark. But in the sublevels below, hundreds of dormant systems blinked awake. Encrypted channels began to hum across deep space, invisible to most sensors. Ancient satellites, forgotten relics of the old Earth fleets, adjusted their orbits ever so slightly, aligning like chess pieces sliding into formation. By morning, every major government in the galaxy noticed something was wrong. The Terran colonies on Titan, Luna, and Mars shut down communication lines. Cargo routes disappeared from tracking systems. Civilian transport companies vanished from registry databases. Entire fleets listed as decommissioned were suddenly unaccounted for. The humans had gone dark not just politically, but physically, vanishing from the shared grid that tied the galaxy together. The panic spread like static. "They're preparing for war," screamed the Xyler defense channels. "They're mobilizing fleets." But no fleets moved. No engines flared. Nothing left orbit. Only silence. In the council chamber, ambassadors argued through the night, voices cracking under fear disguised as reason. "We must demand transparency. They cannot be allowed to vanish. They are bluffing. Humans don't have the capacity for large-scale retaliation." Someone mentioned the Crithian disappearance, and everyone stopped talking. Back on Ilion Prime, Morgan watched from his balcony as the first panic protests began below. Aliens with placards demanding peace with Earth, chanting in languages that twisted through the air like prayers. He stood quietly, the city's glow painting his features in amber and blue. His communicator pinged once, coded in a pattern so old it had become myth. 3 short, 1 long, 2 short. The pattern of Operation Retribution Dawn. He didn't open it immediately. He just listened to the sound. When Ria entered again, she found him standing before the ancient Terran flag hung on the wall, faded, patched, a relic from the First Colony Wars. "They're saying the Dominion's deploying ships near Sol," she said. "They're calling it preventive defense." Morgan's gaze didn't move. "They're hoping to find Earth unarmed." Her voice dropped. "Is it?" He turned then, eyes glinting like steel behind glass. "No, Lieutenant. It never was." Far away, in the unlit regions beyond map space, the ghost fleet stirred. Subspace shadows unfolded into outlines. Old warships humanity had never officially dismantled. The Erebus Array, the Vigilant Dawn, the Bastion of Fallujah. Ships whispered about like folktales, maintained by families who swore oaths rather than signed contracts. They'd waited generations for this silence. On the third day, the Dominion's Chancellor sent a personal message to the Council. "We urge calm," he said, his scales glistening under studio lights. "We have dispatched peace envoys to Earth's orbital perimeter. Surely they understand our remorse." The envoys never returned. Their last transmission contained only music, an old Earth song from centuries ago, voiced gravelly and haunting. "There's a man going round talking names." The translation AI failed to interpret the tone. The analysts called it cultural static. The veterans didn't. They started packing. By the 4th day, the panic became open terror. Trade routes shut down. Colonies began evacuating children first. Old alliances fractured as each species tried to distance itself from the Xyler Dominion. And through it all, Earth remained silent. In the human embassy, Morgan finally received the Council's urgent summons. "You must speak on behalf of your government," the arbiter pleaded through the transmission. "The galaxy demands to know your intentions." He arrived hours later, calm, coat unbuttoned, holding a fresh cup of coffee. The chamber looked different now. No light-hearted debate, no laughter. Fear had settled like dust on everything. The arbiter spoke first. "Ambassador Hale, we require immediate confirmation. Are your people preparing military action?" He seemed to think about it, swirling his drink, the steam coiling like a ghost. "Action," he said softly. "No. Preparation? Always." Vorthan's crystalline body glowed red-hot. "Your silence is intimidation." Morgan looked up, eyes weary but sharp. "No, Ambassador. Silence is mercy. Intimidation comes after." The room fell still. Somewhere, a drone's recorder clicked faintly, capturing every heartbeat. Then, faintly at first, a low pulse began echoing through the council's audio systems, a rhythm, steady and deliberate. Not music, not code, but heartbeat. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2. Morgan set his cup down. "That's the sound of Earth," he said quietly. "You've never really heard it before." "Is that a threat?" the arbiter asked, voice trembling. He smiled again, that same calm, terrifyingly human smile. "No. It's a reminder. You hurt our children, and now the universe is listening to our pulse." When it stops, he trailed off, letting the silence finish the sentence for him. The chamber lights flickered. One by one, every starship beacon outside Elian Prime blinked out, plunging the orbital sky into darkness. "Then," Morgan whispered, "the storm begins." The last thing the council heard before the feed cut was the soft click of his lighter and the hiss of smoke curling into the void. And in the deep dark between worlds, humanity's silence began to move. The first attack came without warning, without sound, and without mercy. The Xylar outpost on Delta Vega simply ceased to exist at 0300 Galactic Standard. No explosion, no light, just absence. When rescue drones arrived, they found a crater of glass stretching for miles, still warm to the touch. The stars above reflected perfectly in its molten mirror. Embedded in the center was a single object, a child's locket, turning slowly in the dust, its clasp engraved with one word: remember. The Xylar Dominion called it terrorism. The Council called it impossible. But the humans called it something else entirely: justice. Across the galaxy, systems began to fail. Xylar defense grids flickered like dying fireflies. Their ships, sleek, cold instruments of imperial precision, refused to answer commands. Artificial intelligences suddenly recited nursery rhymes in old Earth languages before collapsing into static. Communications fell silent, replaced by a faint signal no one could trace, the heartbeat rhythm from the council chamber. 1, 2. Pause. 1, 2. On the third night, the Xylar homeworld lost its sun for 7 minutes. The star dimmed to black, then returned, as if something vast had passed in front of it. No one knew what. Those who looked too long swore they saw shapes, hulking, angular silhouettes like rusted warships drifting in formation. The veterans whispered an old Terra name: Erebus Fleet. Morgan Hale watched it all from the command bridge of the Vigilant Dawn, humanity's oldest dreadnought, reborn from the scrapyards of Luna. The vessel was a cathedral of shadow and steel, its walls lined with memorial plaques instead of trophies. He stood before the viewport, arms crossed behind his back, as the stars rippled with motion, ships decloaking like ghosts revealing their teeth. "Targets confirmed," said Ria Santiago, now in full officer's uniform, her voice steady though her hands trembled. "Operation Retribution Dawn is green across all sectors." Morgan nodded once. "Transmission status?" "Ready to broadcast." He exhaled slowly, then let them see. The message went out not through military channels, but through entertainment networks, civilian frequencies, and even children's hologames. Every being in the Dominion saw the same feed: a man in uniform seated calmly before a flag older than most civilizations. "This is Ambassador Morgan Hale of Earth," he began, voice even. "You hurt our children. You violated the one rule carved into the stars themselves. We will not negotiate. We will not invade. We will simply ensure you never touch another child again. He leaned forward slightly. And we will do it politely. Then the feed ended, replaced by coordinates flashing one by one. Each set marked a Xylar military command post. 20 seconds later, those coordinates stopped existing. From orbit, the destruction looked almost surgical. Human weapons didn't scorch the atmosphere or shatter moons. They slipped through space-time, turning ships into silence. The Xylar fleet tried to respond, but their engines locked into standby, overridden by ghost code buried deep in their systems. Code written decades ago, when Xylar engineers had first purchased Terran AI cores. The humans hadn't sold them software. They'd sold them leashes. Rhea watched in disbelief as entire armadas drifted powerless. "Sir, are we really doing this?" Morgan's gaze didn't move from the stars. "We warned them. We gave the universe a rule. They thought it was a myth. Now they'll remember it as law." Reports flooded in, each colder than the last. On Archeon 9, Xylar officers surrendered en masse, begging for asylum under the human charter. Civilians broadcast pleas for forgiveness into the void. Some prayed. Some sang old lullabies. The humans didn't answer. They only sent food drops to the survivors, labeled with the Terran emblem and a single phrase, "For the innocent." In the council chambers, panic turned to paralysis. No one dared summon Earth again. The Arbiter, trembling, tried to reach Morgan through back channels. "Ambassador Hale, this retribution, it threatens the balance of the stars. You must stop this before the galaxy burns." Morgan's reply came not as words, but as a video feed. It showed 12 coffins, small and white, lined beneath the Earth flag. Soldiers stood at attention as children's names were read aloud. Each name was followed by a silence longer than the last. When the final name was spoken, the screen cut to black. Back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Rhea stood beside him, eyes glassy. "How far will we go?" "As far as it takes," Morgan said. "We're not here to destroy. We're here to remind." Outside, the human fleet moved like a living thing. Ships emerging from folds in space, old hulls painted with words from dead languages. Semper Fidelis. De Presso Liber. For the children. Each vessel bore scars of ancient wars, but their engines burned with new purpose. The Dominion fought back, of course. Desperation breeds courage. But against humanity's ghost fleets, courage was irrelevant. Missiles vanished before launch. Energy beams bent mid-flight, redirected by invisible interference fields. The humans didn't duel, they executed. In a last act of defiance, the Xylar Chancellor ordered a retaliatory strike on Earth itself. The fleet fired before even verifying coordinates. When the missiles exited warp, they found themselves orbiting their own capital city. Each warhead had been redirected silently and precisely by human code seeded years before. The explosion illuminated the night like a second sunrise. The council wept. Morgan did not. He only whispered, "We told them not to break the rule." For 3 more days, the operation unfolded with grim precision. Entire planets surrendered before the human fleets even arrived. The attacks stopped as suddenly as they began. The final transmission received from the Dominion's core world came from a child's voice, weak but clear. "Please, we didn't mean to." Morgan listened in silence. Then he turned away. "Prepare the relief ships," he said. Rhea blinked. "Relief ships? After all this?" He met her eyes. "We punish the guilty. We protect the young. That's who we are." The Vigilant Dawn descended into Xylar orbit, its massive shadow cast across burning continents. Drones swarmed out, carrying medicine, food, and rebuilding materials. The same hands that had destroyed were now healing. The paradox terrified the galaxy more than the war itself. When the council tried again to contact him, Morgan finally responded, his image weary but resolute. "You call this vengeance," he said quietly. "It isn't. It's discipline. The universe keeps forgetting what we are. We're not conquerors. We're reminders." He leaned closer to the camera. "And we remember everything." Then he reached off-screen and pressed a control. Behind him, a massive holographic display ignited. A star map filled with red markers, each representing a hidden human asset. The map kept expanding, beyond known space, beyond recorded limits. The council delegation gasped as the scope widened to include their own systems. "Do you see now?" Morgan asked. "We didn't build peace. We built a leash strong enough to hold the galaxy. We just prefer not to pull it." He shut the feed off. In the silence that followed, Rhea whispered, "It's over, isn't it?" Morgan didn't answer. He looked out at the smoldering world below and the stars beyond it. His reflection in the glass was tired, human, and utterly unshaken. In the black between galaxies, more ships decloaked, hundreds, maybe thousands, forming a quiet constellation in the shape of a child's hand. Morgan watched it appear, his expression unreadable. "No," he said finally, his voice a quiet blade. "This was never war. This was the reminder before the lesson." And as the stars dimmed, the heartbeat signal began again, faster this time, louder, spreading across the galaxy like a pulse returning to life. The Xylar capital burned like a fallen sun. Entire continents glowed beneath black clouds, oceans hissed to steam, and the air was thick with the scent of metal and regret. From orbit, it looked almost peaceful, an ember cradled in the void. The human fleet drifted above it in perfect silence, an armada of patient ghosts. Morgan Hale stood on the bridge of the vigilant dawn, staring through the viewport as the fires dimmed. He looked tired, the weight of what had been done pressing invisible hands upon his shoulders. The war was over. The Xylar Dominion had surrendered unconditionally. But there was no celebration, no victory broadcast, no anthem. Humanity didn't need witnesses. They never waged wars for applause. Rhea Santiago entered quietly, her boots whispering across the steel deck. Her face was pale from the heat wash reflecting off the planet. "Sir," she said, "relief drones are ready. They're waiting for your confirmation." Morgan's eyes flicked toward her, then back to the planet. "Deploy them. Medical aid first, food second. Prioritize the children." She hesitated. "After everything, we're helping them?" "We always help," he said softly. "That's what makes us so dangerous." The words hung in the air, cold and true. Below them, the drones descended through smoke and flame, spreading light where there had been darkness. They carried supplies wrapped in the same silver foil that once packaged rations for Terran War refugees. Every crate bore the same inscription, "For the survivors." The surviving Xylar didn't resist. They watched the machines land among their ruins, watched humans emerge in sealed suits, carrying water, bandages, comfort. The same species that had erased their empire now rebuilt their cities without demand or ceremony. To the Xylar, it looked like madness. To Morgan, it was balance. When the first survivors reached out, children covered in soot and ash, the human soldiers knelt to meet them. One soldier removed her helmet, revealing eyes red from tears, not fury. She offered a piece of chocolate. The little girl took it without a word. In that instant, the last myth of human mercy became real again, and the galaxy shivered at the contradiction. In the council chambers light years away, chaos reigned. Every delegate spoke at once, fear, outrage, horror. The arbiter slammed her floral limbs against the dais, silencing the uproar. "We cannot let this stand," she said, voice trembling. "Humanity has destroyed a sovereign power. They have rewritten the laws of war." Vorthan, his crystalline skin dimmed to gray, rasped, "And what will you do, Arbiter? Find them? Send an army? Who dares?" Silence fell again. Everyone knew the answer. Humanity's fleets were not just powerful, they were everywhere. The discovery of hidden Terran assets in nearly every star system had changed the balance forever. Every communication relay, every trade hub, every colony could be turned off with a whisper. The Arbiter turned to her aide. "Summon Hale. Demand explanation." The aide hesitated. "He's already here." Morgan appeared in the chamber doorway, uniform immaculate, expression unreadable. He carried no guards, no weapons, just a tablet and that same battered mug of coffee. He walked through the terrified assembly like a man entering his own kitchen. "Ambassador Hale," the arbiter began, her voice a brittle thread. "The council demands to know under whose authority these atrocities were committed." He sipped his drink. "Atrocities," he repeated. "That's a matter of perspective. Millions are dead." Vorthen thundered. Morgan turned his gaze on him. "Millions of soldiers. The same who bombed refugee convoys. We killed combatants, not children. You've seen the footage. We fed those." Vorthen's molten veins pulsed with fury. "You fed them after burning their world." "Yes," Morgan said, placing the mug on the table. "Because hunger doesn't care who started the fire." The chamber was utterly still. Even the translators paused, unsure how to carry such words across languages. The arbiter leaned forward. "This Operation Retribution Dawn, you claim it was restraint?" "Absolutely," Morgan said. "You think this was vengeance?" "No. Vengeance is chaos. This was order. We erased only those who broke the rule." "And who decides that rule?" she demanded. He met her gaze, unflinching. "We all did. You just forgot why." A projection flickered to life behind him. Grainy historical footage. An early council meeting from centuries past. The same law glowing faintly in the background. "Do not harm human children." The arbiter watched in stunned silence as her own predecessors nodded in unison. The record was undeniable. Morgan's voice softened. "We didn't ask for that rule. You wrote it after the Crithians. After you realized what happens when we stop pretending to be civilized." "Pretending." He smiled faintly. "You've seen us at peace. You haven't seen what peace costs us." He gestured, and the projection changed. Images of Earth's past. Hiroshima's shadow, the deserts of Mars, the frozen cities of Europa during the famine. "We learned long ago that our kindness needs teeth. That mercy without memory is suicide. We're not monsters by nature." He paused. "But we're excellent at becoming them when we have to." The arbiter whispered, "You call this mercy?" Morgan looked around the room at the glittering ambassadors, the ancient species that had once pitted humanity as the galaxy's youngest race. "Mercy is what happens after justice. We've already delivered both." Vorthen slammed a fist into the table. "You'll destabilize the entire galactic order." Morgan raised an eyebrow. "Order built on fear of the weak isn't order. It's delay." The council erupted again, voices shrill with desperation. Morgan let them scream for a while. Then he raised a hand, and somehow, impossibly, the room obeyed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic device, an old data key. He placed it gently on the table. "This is a failsafe," he said. "A very old one. It's been sitting quietly in your systems since humanity joined the council. Every world represented here has one." Vorthen stared. "What does it do?" Morgan smiled faintly. "Keeps everyone honest." The device pulsed once, and holographic schematics filled the chamber. Hundreds of hidden nodes buried across the galaxy. Planetary engines, terraforming cores, drone factories, comm satellites, all bearing human origin codes. "You've been wondering how we built so fast," he said. "We didn't. We just never stopped building. Every trade agreement, every shared system, every handshake came with a gift. A circuit, a code, a reminder." The arbiter's voice was barely audible. "You mean you control us?" "Control." Morgan shrugged. "That's an ugly word. I prefer protect. We never wanted empires. We wanted assurance. We made sure no one could ever hurt our children again, not without risking extinction." The delegates stared, some in awe, some in despair. The truth was undeniable. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They'd quietly built it around themselves. The arbiter's petals quivered. "And if we refuse this protection?" Morgan picked up his mug. "Then you'll test the rule again." He turned to leave, but paused at the threshold. "Don't," he said softly, "ever test it twice." He walked out, leaving the council in paralyzed silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the failsafe still glowing on the table. Back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Morgan found Rhea waiting at the viewport. The Xylar planet below was dark now, its fires quenched by rain seeded from human drones. Life was already rebuilding itself from the ashes. She looked at him carefully. "They're terrified of us." He nodded. "Good. Fear remembers longer than gratitude." Her voice cracked. "And you're not afraid of what we've become?" He looked at her, eyes tired, kind, and cold all at once. "Afraid? Constantly. That's why we stay human. The day we stop fearing ourselves, that's the day the universe really ends." She didn't answer. The stars outside shifted slightly, forming strange patterns, shapes that looked almost deliberate. Human ships positioning in slow synchrony, like constellations rewritten by will alone. One cluster took the shape of an open hand, 5 bright ships glimmering like fingertips. Morgan exhaled and watched them align. "We were never the heroes they wanted," he murmured. "We're the warning they needed." Rhea followed his gaze. "And what happens now?" He picked up his communicator, its signals still pulsing with that same human heartbeat. "Now," he said, "we teach them what mercy really costs." Far below, the Xyler survivors gathered in the ruins of their cities as the relief drones descended once more, carrying food, medicine, and strange silver markers bearing Earth's crest. On each marker were etched the same 4 words, simple and eternal. The universe had one rule. Morgan stood in the fading light of the command deck, eyes on the planet that had once been an enemy. The reflection of the flames danced across his face, half angel, half executioner. He whispered, almost to himself, "They broke the rule." We became the reminder. Outside, the human fleet turned slowly toward the stars, engines igniting like a sunrise. And as they vanished into the void, every relay in the galaxy blinked once, transmitting the final message from Earth. 3 words spoken in a child's voice, soft and unbroken. "Never. Again. Ever." The transmission ended, but the echo remained across the stars, across generations, carried in the silence that followed. The monsters they made were human all along.